Welcome to another episode of Whitetail Rendezvous, coming to you 6 days a week as we interview whitetail experts and hear their traditions and personal stories of the hunt. Learn more about the latest gear, discover proven tips, and the latest strategies so you can make your next hunt a success. Now, here's your host, Bruce Hutchin.
Whitetail Rendezvous is pleased to announce a partnership with GoHunt.com. Who's GoHunt.com? Well, if you're a DIY hunter, you need the information at GoHunt.com/insider. Why? Because it provides 4,200 profiles, every unit, every species, and every season. Furthermore, they give in-depth analysis, interactive maps, unit access, and seasonal trends. Draw odds are very important, and they give you the most accurate information in the business. All this is available when you go to GoHunt.com/insider. Make sure you use promo code WR when you join Insider. You'll get a $50 gift card for GoHunt.com Gear Shop. Remember, when you become a member of GoHunt.com/insider, you're going to get a $50 gift card to Go Hunt Gear Shop. What's in the gear shop? The best gear that you can buy for hunting the West. This gear's been field tested by some of the best, and they know what it can do, what it can't do. You're going to get reviews, and you're going to have a selection that is bar none right at the top of the list. Having said that, once you get your gift card, all you have to do is go to GoHunt.com and go to the first page and click on shop and go have some fun. All in all, if you're hunting out West in 2018, GoHunt.com Insider is where you need to be to get all the research information. When you use promo code WR, Whitetail Rendezvous receives a small commission from GoHunt.com. Welcome to another episode. Hey, this is the first episode in January 2018, and we're heading out to California with a good friend, Michael Walker. Now, Michael is an interesting friend. In the warm-up, we were just talking about how interesting, and he and I are kindred spirits. He rolled his truck, and as everybody knows, and I'm sure getting tired of hearing that I rode my truck and both of us walked away. But having said that, Michael's a gold miner. He's a singer. He's a songwriter. He's a hunter. Do you have a TV show, or what's going on there?
I used to have a TV show on Pursuit. I did it one season. I didn't like the format. I thought coming up with 22 minutes was something I didn't like to do. So I still record and have my online service, Living Free Outdoors. And I add stuff now and again. But with Instagram, everything's so quick now. It's just you want to get it out as soon as you can. So I don't do as much on that as I used to, but it's there, Living Free Outdoors.
So this guy has done a lot of things. So listen up. You might pick up some tips if you're looking at 2018. Hey, I'd like to do something different, or I'm interested in X, Y, or Z. Michael's going to share some insider tips. Michael, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Bruce. Good to be here.
Hey, now I know what a redneck is. I'm not sure if I know what a California neck is. Kind of bring us up to speed on that.
Well, a California neck is just like any other redneck. The only difference is he's in California. There's rednecks everywhere. And I think Jeff Foxworthy kind of made it cool to be a redneck, so we're going to have to tip our hat to him. He was the original. But, where I grew up was a small town. Most of the grandparents and parents that ended up in that town came from either Texas, Arkansas, or Oklahoma. And so where I grew up was probably a lot more like growing up in Texas than it was growing up, say, in Southern California. It was a little bit different. It's not what people normally think of California as. It was agriculture. We had cotton fields all around us, and that was kind of my outdoor life for the first part of it.
Now, are you up around San Joaquin Valley, or where do you live?
I am smack dab in the middle of the San Joaquin Valley. I'm near Fresno. I was born about an hour north of Fresno, and I grew up about an hour south of Fresno. So I haven't strayed very far at all.
Well, and I've been through that country a little bit, but it is agriculture, no question about it. And except for the mountains and the type of foliage you have, you could be any place that they grow stuff.
Yeah, we where I'm at in Fresno, there's a lot of grapes out here for raisins and wine, but a lot of people don't know 90% of the country's tomatoes that go into either fresh tomatoes or the products come from right here in California.
I also heard that California is one of the largest producers of milk and cheese products.
That's true. That's true. I don't know if we can eclipse Wisconsin, but we've got a lot of dairies out here. Matter of fact, when I was a kid, my dad worked at a dairy. I grew up with that smell. Just it smells like home to me.
Okay, so $1 million question: how does a guy hunt in California? Because they got a lot of different laws, if you will.
That's true. Well, you just kind of go up to the mountains and you get your tags and you go up there and you hunt. I don't hunt here as much as I used to. I hunt a lot more in Oklahoma, but I didn't really start hunting until I was 25, and it was actually the state of California forced me to become a hunter. Believe it or not, they created a monster, is what they did. And what happened was back in the early 90s, I don't remember the exact year, but in order to buy a handgun, they required you to take either a handgun safety course or a hunter safety course. And a buddy of mine said, well, let's go take the hunter safety course. So over a couple of nights, we took the course. I went and got a license. And long story short, somebody asked me to go deer hunting, bought a deer tag, got up there, and had my first encounter in the woods with a gun and some deer running off. And the adrenaline went up. I didn't get a shot off, but I was hooked from then on out. There's something in us, the same thing that makes kids want to play hide and seek. There's something in all of us that wants to hunt.
And I can, that's a good point because I can remember when growing up, I was fortunate in New England, so I trout fished all the time with a worm and a piece of string, but we played cowboys and Indians all the time, and then we would pretend hunting, because the 5, 6, 8 years old, you didn't have guns, but I just remember that, and it was nobody told us how to do it or why to do it. You just did it.
Well, I'll give you a story. I had a friend of mine. He actually worked with him for a long time. He grew up in a small town near Acapulco, Mexico, and he's up here working. And I said, let's go to the mountains. Just going. And we weren't hunting or anything. And I took because he had never been to the mountains. 2 things I did for him. I introduced him to the mountains, and he had never had Spam before. So I did those both in the same trip. Yeah, he's not the first person I've introduced to Spam either. But so I fed him Spam on white bread, folded in half, loved it. And as we were coming back down from the mountains, we were slowed down. I saw a doe off to the left there on the driver's side. And I said, get a look at it. And I sat in the truck and I watched him. He was, we weren't hunting, but he was just walking up. He was sneaking on that deer like a hunter. He'd never hunted before, but there was something in it. And when he saw that deer and was sneaking on it, he got back to the truck like the most exciting thing he had ever done. There's just something in everybody that it's a natural thing that makes you want to hunt.
And you think about all the antis that, don't say, hunting's terrible. Let's leave it at that. But, you put them in the right situation, I think they would have that same feeling. I think if somebody heard an elk bugling, in the forest, not in Yellowstone Park or whatever, but see it, you'd want to get as close to you as you can to that animal. I think.
Absolutely. And I think if there's not a chance there to take that animal, it's never quite as exciting. I'll tell you, the most exciting thing that happened to me this year was actually taking a doe. The 2 bucks I killed were like anticlimactic, but there's something, if you take that away, if you're just nature watching, it's not nearly as exciting as having to make that shot. There's just something about it. And it goes back to probably the main reason I hunt and the main reason anybody hunted over the past 10,000 years. And because it's food, and people get pretty excited when they're eating food. So I think there's a correlation.
Especially your own food. I know in the past, I'm just trying to remember the gal's name, but single mom, friends, girlfriends, parents, whatever, said, you got to start hunting. So she started hunting. And then she shot a doe, and she got help butchering it. And all of a sudden, she had food on her table that she didn't have to go to the store for. Plus, she was completely entwined with the whole experience. Rather than going to the store and buying a package of hamburger and putting it in a pot and eating tacos. I mean, she actually did it. And she said, once I did that, that was so liberating that, I knew probably I could do whatever I wanted to do. And that's truth.
And I put the anti-hunters really. There's different categories of people who I'll say non-hunters. There's your people who are indifferent about it. There's people who are against it but eat meat, and then there's that small group of people who don't eat any meat product who are against it. I don't believe you can ever get to those people. The people who eat meat, they don't even want to start talking to me about shooting deer or whatever, because I'll get on my phone and if they eat ribs or chicken or whatever, I'll get on my phone and start bringing up pictures of, I'll get online. I got cute little baby chicks and piglets and calves, and I can shut them down pretty quick. People who are indifferent, open-minded, uh, there are people out there like that. They don't hunt, but they're not against hunting. They're not for it. But just all your listeners, just remember this: the best way to get somebody who is indifferent to hunting is to feed them something good. And remember this: chili is the gateway venison. Always has been. It's where you start them at. Start them off with some chili or chili beans, and then work them up from there.
So, folks, that's some good wisdom as we start off the year, and you want to invite your neighbor over that never had venison, and make it easy for them to like it. I guess that's my thought. Just make it really easy for them to like it and go, what the heck is this? With a good wine or a beer or sweet tea, whatever. But if we make it easy for the folks to enjoy a meal, then all of a sudden they go, well, that wasn't so bad. What's the big deal? There's no big deal. It's food.
And one of the things is, if you're feeding somebody wild game that either hasn't had it before, or they'll say it had that taste to it. The thing is, I took my first deer into the butcher. After that, I started doing all my own. So I put all my stuff away, wrapped in cellophane as quarters, and then I bring it out and age it at a later date. I age it in my fridge for a week or two before I start cutting it up. And I think the key is three things. Don't get any freezer burn on your meat. Make sure that you age it. And three, this is important for people who don't eat wild game, get everything off but the actual red meat, because the flavor that's off-putting to most people is not in the meat itself. It's in the connective tissue, the tendons, the silver and white layers on there. If you can clean that off, you've got them, because it just tastes like the best, cleanest beef you've ever had.
When you age, what temperature do you like to age your beef at or venison at?
My refrigerator's set at 44. If I could, I'd do it at 38 or 39, but 44, I can leave it in there a couple of weeks and keep dumping off the blood, and it never smells. Once you cut it up, if you've got good meat, and the way I do it, I age it long enough to where when I take a piece of meat, you can squeeze it between your fingers, and it's like squeezing a piece of salmon. It's aged real nice, but it doesn't have any flavor or smell to it yet, and it's ready to go. A little bit of butter in the pan and some seasoning, flip it over. Oh, there's nothing like it. I look up to heaven and I go, every time I cook it for myself. And I probably have it 4 or 5 times a week is how I eat it.
Well, folks, there's some culinary delights, if you will. And let's go to what you're doing with the gold and panning or sluicing. And I know there's gold in them. There are hills. Obviously, California was, founded on the gold rush and all those areas. But how did you get into that?
Well, I'll tell you, back used to watch PBS, and there was the Gold Prospectors Association of America had a show on. It was really just an infomercial, but they had a show on, and they'd sell you a package. Well, I never bought the package or joined. I had a buddy who did, but I worked with a guy who was interested in it, so we started going up, and we'd start panning in different areas, and we would pan and be like, "Is that gold? Is that gold?" And we'd keep looking. Finally, we panned something out. We saw just a little sliver of something, and it didn't look like anything else that had been in the pan before. And you knew that it was gold by the way it acted, the way it looked, and it's kind of like hunting. I was hooked from then. You get that gold fever, you can't get it out of your system.
And there's a lot of shows now. I mean, the guys up in Alaska, there's, they become TV stars, and they're huge rigs, and I don't know what they call the big separators and stuff like that. But it's just, it's still a huge business. And there's people that actually in Colorado, a lot of gold in Colorado, they'll go out, they'll make $20,000-$30,000 a year. One, they
That's
know
true.
where the gold is.
That's true. I had a
Two,
friend of mine. California shut down dredging, or shut down legal dredging. You can't shut down what is not seen. But anyway, they shut down legal dredging, so it ceased. I had a friend of mine from Arizona who used to come up here during the summer with his family, and they'd go in and they'd gold mine on the Feather River, and they had a big dredge. And for people who don't know what a dredge is, it's just basically a vacuum. If you've seen Bering Sea gold, that's basically what we use, but we just use smaller ones that float on pontoons. Well, this guy, he had a pretty good sized one, about the size of a houseboat, and they would dredge all summer. And he told me the best day he ever had, the best single day, 30 ounces. So it's still out there, but the state
30 ounces times an average cost of what, 1,000, 1,500? I don't know what it is.
Well, it's about 1,300 now, and when you watch those shows, they'll kick it up. But if you want to know the truth, and I'll tell you the truth about it, generally when you go to sell your gold, it's probably going to be about 85% pure on average. So they take it down for that, and then the buyer will pay you about 85% of that. So you're only going to get about 70% of spot price. And the thing about gold is a standard ounce, like you would weigh your food with, is 28 grams. Gold is 31. You still need to get more gold to make up. So they've got you all the way around. But generally, you'll get paid right around 70% of the actual spot price.
So, but that isn't,
it's about 800 an ounce.
30 ounces. Now that's a huge day, I'm sure. Times, $1,000. That's $30,000 times 70%. That's still 21 grand.
Yeah, and that was one day for them, and they'd go all summer. I never mined like that. I mined a little smaller scale, and I think the best I've done is probably half an ounce in a day. But still, if I can make $100 a day, I feel like I'm doing something. If not, we move on.
Now, let's talk about that. And I'm interested to kind of kick it to where, when you go hunting, you have to scout. Then once you scout, see some game, then you got to figure out how to get on them. And I look at gold, when you're doing what you're doing. So you have to find the right place. I mean, there's a gazillion miles of streams. Here in Colorado, I've seen a couple of miles of high country streams, and I've seen, when I was sheep hunting, I was in color all the time. So let's start right there. So what is color?
That's just any gold you can find in your pan after panning out a pan full. And we typically look for probably 8 to 10 colors. And if we can get that, we can find the pay streak. But colors, that's just a term they use for gold in the pan, whether it's specks or little pickers or nuggets or whatever you have. The color is just an indication that something's going on there, and you need to investigate a little further.
Yeah, some of the high country gold mines, and I mean, we're talking 12,000 feet where they're doing their gold thing. And I was with a guy, quote unquote, kind of sort of knew what he was doing. And he said, there's some color. I said, that's not gold, because I thought exactly what you just said. He said, no, the color is in the rocks, and if they find the right composition in the rocks, they know there's gold here. They don't know where. But
that sounds like more like hard rock mining as opposed to mining in a creek.
Right. That would be hard rock mining.
I don't do much hard rock mining. I've dabbled in it, but I stick pretty much with what they call placer mining, which is mining basically in or next to the water. And nowadays we use a sluice box. We have our own. My mining partner and I, we hooked up with a guy who gave us an apparatus to put on top of our sluice. So now we actually, I'm working on the website and the store. We actually manufacture our own sluice. Hands down, to me, the best one on the market. We've been using it. We've probably been using it for close to 2 years now. And the first summer we used it, it was amazing. We could move more with that than a small dredge. And so I wouldn't trade you a dredge for it. But that's how we do most of ours now. We'll get in the water and we use what we call a micron sluice. That's the name of our company. and it's one of the best on the market as far as I'm concerned. We didn't set out to go in business, but we were using it for our personal use, and everybody wanted one. We said, well, heck, we can't keep giving these away. We got to start selling them. So, but yeah, the when you're looking for gold, a lot of times we'll go in places where historically they've had gold before, and what you want to find a lot of times is places where they couldn't work. And what these old timers would do, they didn't mess around. They were using picks and shovels in their hands, and what they would do, they would actually dig ditches outside of the creek. They would divert the creek, throw off all the stuff on top that was worthless, and then they'd pile up the good stuff and reprocess it. They called it turning over a creek. And they would actually get right down to bedrock in the dry creek by diverting the creek around where they were working, and that's how they did it. So a lot of these places have been they've been mined pretty heavy. But if you can find a place where they couldn't divert the creek, you might be in for something good.
So a sluice box, you take dirt, gravel, whatever, you put it in the top, and it just kind of the water just sifts it out. Is that how that works?
Well, gold is, if you're talking pure gold, it's 19 times heavier than water. If you're talking native gold, it's probably about 16 times denser and heavier, the specific weight. And lead is only 11 times heavier than water. So you can imagine gold is so much denser, it just drops out so quick. And that's how you separate it. It's that it's called liquefaction when you're shaking it in a pan. And everything kind of separates by its own weight. The light stuff sits at the top, and the heavy stuff goes to the bottom. Well, a sluice is the same thing. It runs across riffles. We happen to use drop riffles, which are just basically little channels down at the bottom. It runs across, and so anything heavy drops down into these channels and stays there. But what happens is, as you run it through, all the lighter stuff goes across the top, and the heavy stuff drops down and it stays there. Well, hopefully that heavy stuff's gold. A lot of it's black iron, like stuff you would find in a sandbox with a magnet. But that's how it does it. It's just a gravity thing. Everything runs across there. The heavy stuff drops out and goes to the bottom, and the light stuff just moves off. That's quick and dirty how a sluice box works. We use the same thing that they use on these gold shows. It's just a box with riffles in it. Run your material and water across, and all the heavies drop out. It's just they've been doing that since probably day one, mining for gold.
So how many tons of dirt do you move a day?
Me, I don't know how many tons. We go by yards, 3 by 3 by 3, and we don't move that many. We'll probably move anywhere from 2 to 10 yards a day, depending on how hard it is to get the material. These guys on these TV shows are probably moving, 20 yards a bucket load. So they're moving twice as much as we are in one bucket load. But our material is probably a lot more rich that we're looking at, so we don't have to move as much. But we're moving anywhere from 2 to 10 yards, depending on, some of that stuff's really packed in. If it's looser, it's easier to move, but we go by yards.
Now, use waders and picks, or how do you get the dirt out or the rocks out?
So we get right in the creek. We use a shovel, and normally my partner will shovel a while. I'll fan all the material down, and generally it's only about 3 feet from top of the material down to the bedrock. And you can't go any deeper than the bedrock, of course. But we'll do that, and we manually do it now. If we're down at lower elevations, we'll get in shorts, and I'll put booties on, and we'll just go in there in shorts and knee pads. Last summer, we were up at 7,000 feet, and it was all snow melt. So the water was probably in the high 30s. We had to wear wetsuits, but we did it exactly the same as we did down at the lower elevations. We manually collected the material in the water, shoveled it in by hand, and that's generally how we work, being that we're not able to dredge now.
So how do you, $1 million question, just like how do you find a bull elk? How do you find, a pay stream? What'd you call it? A
pay streak.
Pay streak.
And we had one pay streak this year that we worked, and it was about, I'm going to say 10 to 12 feet wide, and you could just follow it right up through there, and it pinched off down to less than a foot. And after that, it wasn't worth us to work, but that pay streak was kind of easy to follow because there was a rusty color with it because the black iron had rusted. That was an easy one to follow once we found where the gold was at. Other parts of the creek, we found that, and it actually goes contrary to what you're going to read in books. We found that the gold was in the top; it wasn't down on the bedrock. Some event had occurred to get that all turned around, and the gold was in the top foot, not down on the bedrock. So each situation is really different, but you have to take notes and keep track of what has worked in the past. And some areas you just want to take everything. Some areas you just want to take a specific level. There's places where the pay streak might only be, or pay streak and pay layer are two different things. Pay streak is the width and length of it, and the pay layer is how far down that good pay material is, and it may only be 3 or 4 inches thick, and so there's no reason to waste time on what's below that, even though there might be a little bit of gold in it. We leave that for the amateurs. We like to make money at what we do.
Okay, so $1 million question. There probably isn't a creek in California come out of the mountains that doesn't have some kind of gold there, just because of geological and all those other factors that when the earth, those mountains were made. So having said that, how do you pick, we're gonna do this quarter mile of this creek or this 100 yards of a creek? How do you decide that?
We do it the old-fashioned way, Bruce. We start off by taking a pan and testing it. That the pan is key to everything. Even when you see these gold shows on TV, they've got this big fancy equipment. In the end or the beginning, it all comes down to testing with a pan or finishing up with your pan. So we'll go down, we'll test it with a pan, we'll test layers, we'll test different sides of the creek because that sometimes it's on one side and not the other. And then if it looks promising, we'll set our sluice up and we'll run a test for a half hour. And if it's paying, we set up camp there and go to town on it. So it's all about, it starts with the pan. It's always started with the pan. You've got a test pan and see if it's worth exploring further.
So you find a pay streak and then you camp on it and you don't take all the golds and you gotta get back to town, you gotta go to work or whatever. How do you protect that from somebody else coming along and say, oh, somebody's working this?
Well, we do it a couple of ways. One, we'll when we're prospecting, if the area looks really good, we'll claim it. We'll just claim it up, and we have claims we work on. But if it's just going to be just going to be some there, and we'll move up and use it, we'll just go through there and blow through it, and won't bother claiming it because we're on to the next spot. But if you really want to protect it, I mean, if you don't have a claim on it, anybody can get on it and pan or do whatever. But if you have, if it's claimed, no claim jumpers allowed here.
Okay, so then you take your GPS and mark it, or how do you get that claim?
So we'll go on. There's an online service provided by the BLM, and you end up having to send paperwork in old-fashioned way, either snail mail or go in person. But you have to fill out the paperwork. You have to get on a map and go township, range, section, all that stuff. Which part of that, and it's all in the description there that you use. And then in your description of it, you've got to put a corner stake in. In California, the rules are one corner stake, I believe, in the northwest portion of the claim. And so you've got to stake it, literally put a post in there and stake it, and then take your paperwork to the BLM. Then it's yours. And you've got to redo the some paperwork every year, different things that you have to do, but you don't have to refile it every year.
So you don't need a special permit from the BLM or National Forest Service?
No, not unless you're using heavy equipment and moving lots of material.
So basically, as I hear you, anybody that wants to do this can go out there. They got to get some smarts. Okay, they got to get all the stuff, but they find something, and then they just stake it and do the wherewithal, and it's public land, so they get away with it. What about private land? What about people that are mining on private land?
Well, if you know them, that's great. If not, you're out of luck. But people on private land, they've got a little more leeway on what they can do. But if they let you on there, you can go on there. But generally, if people have private land, they don't let you on there, Bruce. It's a sad thing.
No, I can appreciate it. I wouldn't let you on either.
I wouldn't let you on either. I might let you on, Bruce, but I don't know about just a stranger.
Oh, lordy, lordy. That's kind of funny. The claim jumpers, you see all the movies and stuff. Does it get rough and tumble every once in a while?
It could. It does. I've never really been in a situation like that. You can call the sheriff out, but he won't do anything. Claim jumping is actually a civil matter, not a criminal matter. It's a civil matter, so you have to take him to court and do all kinds of stuff. Usually,
So that probably,
most people don't claim jump. If they do, it's by accident. And we're pretty amiable about that. We don't, even if we have a claim and we find somebody panning on it or running a little sluice, we usually don't get up in arms over it. We just kind of, don't go through it like you own it, but go ahead and pan on it. We're not hard like that. We don't mind. We want more people to do it. So if there's just a little panning going on, we usually don't say anything. Just let them know, hey, that's our claim, but don't do anything more than panning.
so we got the hunter in you. Now we get the gold in you. The music. You got your guitar? I didn't set this up, folks. So
Actually,
you have your guitar?
I don't have my guitar. My guitar is packed away,
Oh man,
but
I didn't
right
set it
now
up right.
I haven't even been playing guitar much lately. I've been working on in Photoshop and on the website a little bit. 'Cause,
Yeah.
there's that back end stuff you have to do that has nothing to do with just getting out there and humming and strumming. So that's what I've been working on lately. I've been working with my co-producer, his company, Lore Entertainment. I just signed a management agreement with him, so we're kind of working together. We've got this new album coming out fairly soon, and a single. So we're doing the stuff that's not even music related on it right now.
Well, the song "Ain't Taking These Guns." How did you write that also?
I did. I write everything I record generally. I write a lot of songs. I do a lot of covers, but that particular song, it started like most songs. I was just sitting there banging away on the guitar, and I had I was just playing the riff and started singing with it, and that was the start of the song. I ended up writing that song, and I think I recorded it, released it about less than a year ago, but I recorded it before that. It took a little while to get it released. But my friend Rudy Paris, who was on season 3 of The Voice, he's a heck of a guitar player, probably as good a guitar player as I've seen. And so I got together with him. He helped produce it and play guitar on it for me. And when we released that song, that was my first real release that I'd collaborated with other people on without just doing a demo at home.
Well, folks, I'm trying to bring this up right now. I don't exactly know how it's going to work, but here we go. Ain't taking these guns from me, folks, and so that's live and in charge. And we have the father of that little song in Michael here. So having said that, you're a Renaissance man, and you beat to your own drummer. That's one thing when I met you last year at POMA, Professional Outdoor Media Association. You really roll to yourself, and that's in today's society. I think that's way cool.
Yeah, I pretty much do what I want when I want. You may call it a Renaissance man. I think the new term for that is ADD. You can't concentrate on one thing. So they used to call it Renaissance man. I think now they call it ADD.
Oh Lord. And folks, that song will be available on my website. You'll have the link to YouTube channel, and you can listen to that all you want once the show is published. But think about the music, and where the heck did that start?
Well, I believe the music started. I'll tell you what. When I was 12 years old, I heard a couple of songs on the radio, and I was hooked. I didn't know who they were. I didn't know the name of the songs, the name of the band, and come to find out later, because there were some key lines in that song. There was a line about driving a Maserati, and there was some guys talking about having these big parties, these balls, and it ended up being Ted Nugent and AC/DC. So that's what hooked me at first, and it got me into the hard rock side of things, the old classic rock. But of course, as a 14-year-old boy, you got one thing on your mind, and that's girls. And what better way to get girls? It's either sports or or being in a band, and that was pretty much my inspiration for wanting to be in a band at that time. And so I wanted to be rich. I wanted a Ferrari. I wanted women. I wanted a big mansion. And funny thing is, you couldn't pay me to take any of those things now. Of course, my wife wouldn't approve of the women anyways. So I'm just going to keep driving a truck, living in a small house, and I'll stick with one woman for now. But I look at the music. I wanted to be rich earlier. Now I look at it a little bit different. I look at it more as a business. What's the weekly income averaged out over a year, and so it's more like a job now than it used to be, and that's probably how it should have been in the first place. But I really just got into it to get girls.
Well, why wouldn't you? I mean,
well, I saw these guys who had beautiful women. I thought, 14. That's the only thing I had on my mind. School was secondary, but so I ended up getting a guitar when I was 14, acoustic guitar, and learned a few songs. I'm not really a great guitar player, but good enough to sing and accompany myself with the guitar. And but I actually, my first band I was in, and the band I played in for a long time, the guitar player I played with, I actually started playing bass guitar in the band because they needed a bass player. We ended up moving down to L.A., hanging out in Hollywood, playing all the clubs. And although, straight out of high school, it was a lot of fun. After about 3 years, I moved back, and I look at my past, and I'm thinking, that was a good learning experience for street smarts, but I wouldn't go back and do it again. It was a good time at the time, but I've come to the realization that I'm just a small town guy. Always have been, always will be. So that's where I'm at now. And when I started writing music, I played for a long time in cover bands, playing classic rock songs. And the thing is, I'd get up and go to work at 4 a.m. on a Friday. I'd get up at 2, go to work at 4, come home. We'd go load in our equipment at 5 or 6, and I'd play till, just before 2 in the morning, closing time, get home at 3, and I was putting in these 24-hour days to play on a Friday and then turning around and going back and doing it on a Saturday, and I just wasn't getting enough sleep. I was getting a little burnout on that. So I actually took a break from music for a while. My guitar player started doing his blues thing, and then about a year later, I took some of my lyrics and songs, started writing new ones, and I looked at them. I went, this is it's not 100%, but these songs are pretty well leaning towards country with the lyrics and the style of music. I call it California country. It's got a little bit of, it's just rock and roll with a little twang and a little thing thrown in, right? So we call that California country out here, and realized what it was. So I just kind of ran with it, and the California thing was born, all that. And but that's where I'm at in music now. I'm just doing my thing, doing what I want to do, and I've hooked up with some really good people, really good people out there.
So what's it about? You got T-shirts, and I think you got beanies. I don't know what all you got. Swag man, but you trying to sell some stuff now? What's up with that?
Yeah. We're going to. I've been working on the designs. We had the original California design, which is just the definition of California. But I've got some things that I'm coming up with. The management company I'm working with, one of the guys there, he's working on some of his designs. We're gonna throw it up against the wall and see what sticks. But there's a lot more people out here in California. If you were to exclude Southern California and the Bay Area, it would be redneck central. The whole state. It's just it's different where I live than in those big cities.
Yeah, and I would agree with that. Living, in the OC, which I did, and when I hung out there, and then I used to go up to San Jose and work there. I never worked up in the San Francisco area. Spent enough time in there. But when you think about that, folks, we already talked about producing. I think most of the almonds in the world come from California. We're talking about milk. We're talking about grapes. We're talking about cheese. What's some of the other major crops
course, you got your tomatoes. That's
Yeah, you
90%
said
of the
that.
tomatoes. But what's really been coming on strong lately, they've got a variety. It grows well here, and they give bumper crops of it. They've started growing. A lot of people are taking out different things that they've been growing, and they're growing the heck out of pistachios here, growing them like crazy. We've got
I wonder
olives
why
here.
that is. Because my
You
wife,
know,
I don't know. My wife eats them all the time. You know, I don't care.
you don't like them, huh? You're
No,
indifferent.
yeah, I'm just
I
indifferent.
I like them, but I don't eat them because they're kind of expensive, even here. But yeah, they started growing. They go through these phases where they just have to have this one type of fruit. And the farmers they go where the money's at. So if it makes sense to pull out, say, walnuts and put in pistachios because they're paying more, they'll take that year or two in between the time they plant them and get production, and they'll sell them. So pistachios are really hot right now, and the reason is because our summers, we probably average 98, 100 degrees, very dry. So the truth is, a lot of the Mediterranean type stuff grows really well here in the summertime because it's very similar climate. It's real dry here, not as dry as Arizona, but it's dry, and so we got a lot of flat land. This valley, it's all flat. It's probably 300 feet above sea level the whole way across, just about. And so we got a lot of flat land here. Originally, we've got a number of rivers that come out of the mountains that run through here for irrigation, and it's just the soil's rich. It's just a great place because of the flatness of it, the water availability, and the climate. It's just a great place to grow vegetables and fruits.
And with that, folks, we're going to wrap up the show. It's been an interesting, eclectic show, that's for sure. And Michael, just thanks so much for joining me and thousand listeners on Whitetail Rendezvous. A little different show, folks, but that's what I wanted. Michael's a heck of a guy. I've enjoyed getting to know him, and he brings a lot to the table. If you ever sit down with him, you go, "Holy right, this guy is a pretty smart guy, and he knows what he wants, and he just goes out and gets it." So, Michael, thank you so much for being a guest on Whitetail Rendezvous.
Thanks for having me, Bruce. Appreciate it.
We're heading down to North Carolina. We're going to connect with Kent Wilkinson. Kent is the CEO and founder of Muzzle Force One. What the heck is Muzzle Force One? Well, it's a shooting stabilizer. That's the easiest way to say it. It creates torque in your hand, right into your shoulder, so you're stable when you shoot. It's not another sling. It's basically a torque stabilizer. So you can shoot offhand a lot more confident than in the past. MuzzleForce1.com is where you need to go to check it out. But Ken's going to bring and spin some stories about hunting in the Piedmont area of the Carolinas.
Thanks for joining us. Be sure to tune in tomorrow for another episode of Whitetail Rendezvous, where you can listen and learn from the experts so you can be more successful on your next hunt. Until next time, listen, learn, and succeed.